Hello there, my sleepy souls. Tonight, we journey through the complete story of Rosalie Hale, the girl who was born with everything and lost it all in a single night before immortality trapped her in the beauty that had once been her greatest blessing and became her eternal curse. Rosalie Lillian Hale lived 18 years as the most beautiful girl in Rochester before beauty attracted the monster that shattered her golden cage forever. I hope you won't mind me mentioning this, but subscribing would truly help me out if these stories are speaking to you. As we begin 2026, I'm building this space for fellow Twilight fans, and your support fuels my passion to keep bringing you more lore content. Thank you. As you settle in, I'm curious where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. You can tell me in the comments. Now, let's get back to Rosalie's journey. Let her story of survival and sorrow carry you gently into rest. Rosalie Lillian Hale was born on the 11th of September in 1915 in Rochester, New York, during the second year of the Great War that was consuming Europe, and that would eventually draw America into conflict that would reshape the world order and would end the optimism that had characterized the early 20th century before mechanized warfare had demonstrated humanity's capacity for industrialized destruction. Her parents were a successful banker and his socially ambitious wife, who had married for mutual advantage rather than for love, but who had created comfortable life together through their complementary skills in accumulating wealth and in displaying that wealth through the elaborate social performances that characterized upper-class existence in medium-sized American cities where old money families competed for status and where new money families sought acceptance into established hierarchies. Rosalie had two younger brothers who were born several years after her and who were pleasant children, but who were never the focus of their parents' attention or their parents' ambitions in the way that Rosalie was. From the moment she emerged into the world with the kind of physical beauty that even newborn infants sometimes displayed, through features that suggested they would grow into extraordinary attractiveness. Her beauty was apparent from infancy in ways that shaped how everyone around her responded to her existence, her parents' friends commenting constantly on the baby's perfect features and the baby's unusual loveliness that exceeded normal infant cuteness, and that suggested she would grow into remarkable beauty if she maintained the promise that her early appearance displayed. Her mother recognized immediately that Rosalie's appearance was a valuable asset that could be cultivated and could be leveraged for social advancement, the kind of beauty that could attract wealthy suitor and could elevate the family's position through advantageous marriage that would connect them to families with older money and with more established social credentials than banking wealth alone could provide. Her father was proud of having produced such a beautiful daughter, but was less calculating about the strategic implications. His affection more genuine, even though he also recognized that beautiful daughters were currency in social exchanges that governed upper-class marriage markets, where families negotiated alliances through their children's unions. Rosalie's childhood was characterized by privilege and by careful grooming for the role she would eventually play as ornament and as valuable commodity in marriage negotiations that her parents were already planning before she had learned to read or to write. She had the finest clothes that money could buy, her mother dressing her like doll for social events and for photographs that documented the family's prosperity and that displayed Rosalie as the crown jewel of their success. She attended the best private schools where daughters of Rochester's elite families learned the skills they would need to manage wealthy households and to perform the social duties that upper-class wives were expected to fulfill through hosting parties and through participating in charitable organizations that allowed rich women to feel purposeful while maintaining their positions at the top of local hierarchies. Her education was adequate, but was not designed to prepare her for independence or for career, the assumption being that she would marry well and would never need to support herself or to think beyond the domestic sphere, where women's influence was considered appropriate and where women's ambitions were supposed to be contained. The Great Depression that began in 1929, when Rosalie was 14 years old, devastated most American families and destroyed the financial security that millions of people had believed was permanent and was guaranteed by the endless prosperity that had characterized the 1920s before the stock market collapse had revealed how fragile the economic system actually was beneath its surface appearance of stability. Rosalie's family was among the relatively few who maintained their wealth through the Depression years. Her father's conservative banking practices and his careful investments having protected their fortune from the worst of the economic catastrophe that was driving other families into poverty and into desperation. Their continued prosperity during years when most people were struggling to survive made their wealth more visible and made their social position more secure because scarcity had eliminated much of the competition and had reduced the number of families who could afford the kind of lifestyle that the Hales continued to enjoy, while breadlines formed in other neighborhoods and while unemployment reached levels that threatened social stability. Rosalie's beauty matured along with her body as she moved through adolescence, her features developing into the kind of extraordinary loveliness that made people stop and stare when she walked past them on the street or when she entered rooms where gatherings were happening. She was not simply pretty in the way that many young girls were pretty, but was beautiful in ways that seemed almost unreal. Her face, possessing the kind of symmetry and the kind of perfection that artists try to capture in paintings and in sculptures, but that rarely existed in actual human beings, whose features typically contained some asymmetry or some flaw that prevented them from achieving the ideal proportions that classical beauty required. Her golden hair caught light in ways that made it seem luminous. Her violet blue eyes were striking against her fair skin. Her features were delicate, but were perfectly balanced, and her figure developed into the kind of proportions that fashion magazines featured and that men found irresistible regardless of their age or their social position. The attention her beauty attracted was constant and was overwhelming in ways that shaped her understanding of her own value. and her understanding of how the world worked. Men and boys reacted to her appearance with obvious desire and with nervous attempts at conversation that revealed how her beauty made them feel inadequate or made them feel compelled to compete for her attention. Women and girls responded with mixture of admiration and jealousy, some befriending her in hopes that her reflected glory might enhance their own social positions, while others resented her for attracting attention that they wanted for themselves, or that they believed she did not deserve simply because she had been born with fortunate genetics. Her parents encouraged her vanity and encouraged her pride in her appearance, their constant praise and their obvious pleasure in displaying her at social events, teaching her that her beauty was her greatest asset and was the source of her value in their eyes and in society's eyes. Rosalie herself was not immune to vanity and was not unaware of her own beauty, her mirrors showing her daily what everyone's reactions confirmed constantly. She took pride in her appearance and took pleasure in the attention it brought her, not from malicious desire to make others feel inferior, but from natural, human response to being praised and being valued for something she possessed. She enjoyed beautiful clothes and enjoyed jewelry and enjoyed the elaborate hairstyles and the cosmetics that enhanced her natural beauty and that allowed her to present herself as perfectly as possible whenever she appeared in public. The vanity was not deep character flaw, but was conditioned response to environment that had taught her from birth that her appearance mattered more than her thoughts or her feelings or her desires beyond the desire to be beautiful and to be admired for that beauty. But beneath the vanity and beneath the pride in her appearance, Rosalie had genuine dreams about the future that went beyond simply being ornamental wife to wealthy husband. She wanted what her friend Vera had found. Genuine love with partner who valued her for more than her beauty, children who would need her and would love her unconditionally, home that was warm and was filled with family rather than being a showplace for displaying wealth to impress visitors. She watched Vera's simple life with envy that surprised her because Vera had married for love rather than for money, and had married carpenter rather than banker or lawyer or businessman. But Vera's husband looked at her with tenderness and with genuine affection that Rosalie had never seen in her own parents' marriage or in the marriages of other wealthy couples whose unions were business arrangements wrapped in romantic pretense. Vera's baby son was beautiful to Rosalie in ways that jewels and clothes had never been beautiful. The infant representing future and representing creation and representing the kind of meaning that Rosalie sensed was missing from her own elaborate but ultimately empty existence. The suitors who pursued Rosalie throughout her teenage years were numerous and were persistent. Their interest in her based almost entirely on her appearance and on the status that being seen with the most beautiful girl in Rochester would provide to whichever man succeeded in winning her attention. They sent flowers and sent gifts and sent letters filled with poetry and with declarations of devotion that felt hollow because the devotion was to image rather than to person. Their love directed at the beautiful face and the beautiful body rather than at the actual human being who existed behind the appearance that they worshipped. She accepted their attention as her due, but found little satisfaction in their praise because she recognized that none of them actually knew her or actually cared about knowing her when her appearance was sufficient to fulfill their fantasies about possessing the perfect woman whose beauty would reflect their own success and their own status. The King family represented old money in Rochester, their wealth predating the industrial expansion that had created new fortunes during the late 1800s, and that had elevated families like Rosalie's father's family into prosperity, but not into the highest social circles where ancestry mattered as much as current wealth. The Kings owned banks and owned properties throughout the city, their influence extending into politics and into business, and into all the areas where power was exercised by men who had inherited their positions and who expected deference from those whose money was more recently acquired. Royce King II was the oldest son and the heir to the King fortune, his future secured by birthright and by the family's careful management of their assets across generations that had survived economic panics and had survived social changes that had destroyed other families' fortunes. Royce's pursuit of Rosalie began when she was 17 years old, and when he was 24, his interest in her sparked by seeing her at social event, where her beauty had been the center of attention and where every man present had been watching her with obvious desire that Royce decided to satisfy by making her his conquest and eventually his wife. His courtship was aggressive and was possessive from the beginning, his gifts extravagant, and his public displays of attention designed to establish his claim on her and to discourage other suitors from competing for her affection. He sent her dozens of roses weekly and sent her jewelry that was too expensive for an unmarried girl to accept, but that her parents encouraged her to keep, because refusing gifts from Royce King would be insulting to family that could provide advantages that Rosalie's parents wanted desperately for themselves and for their daughter. The courtship proceeded according to expectations that wealthy families had for their children's marriages, Royce's parents approving of the match because Rosalie's beauty would enhance the family's image and because her father's banking connections could be useful in future business dealings. Rosalie's parents were thrilled by the attention from the King heir, their daughter's beauty having achieved exactly what they had hoped it would achieve by attracting suitor from family more prestigious than their own, and by creating opportunity for social advancement through marriage alliance. Rosalie herself had mixed feelings about Royce that she did not fully examine or did not allow herself to acknowledge, because questioning the match would disappoint her parents and would seem ungrateful when she was being offered everything that young women in her social position were supposed to want. The engagement announcement came in March of 1933, when Rosalie was 17, and when Royce had finally secured her father's permission and had finally presented her with a ring that cost more than most families earned in a year. The announcement was published in all the local newspapers, the society columns describing the engagement as union of two prominent families and describing Rosalie as the most beautiful bride-to-be that Rochester had ever seen. Her mother was triumphant, the engagement representing culmination of years of careful cultivation and representing proof that beauty could be converted into social position and into financial security. The wedding was planned for summer, the preparations already beginning before the engagement was officially announced, because her mother had been planning the event for months in anticipation of Royce's proposal that everyone had known was coming. The wedding preparations consumed the spring months, Rosalie's life becoming a series of dress fittings and menu selections and invitation decisions that were made mostly by her mother and by Royce's mother, who had strong opinions about how the wedding should be conducted to appropriately reflect the King family status and the importance of the union. Rosalie was central figure in the preparations, but was also strangely peripheral, her role being to appear beautiful and to agree with decisions that other people made about an event that was supposedly about her happiness, but that was actually about displaying wealth and about cementing social alliances. The wedding dress was custom made by the finest dressmaker in Rochester. The gown designed to showcase Rosalie's beauty and to create image that would be remembered and would be talked about for years as example of perfect bride in perfect dress, marrying into perfect family. The visit to Vera's home in early April changed something in Rosalie's understanding of what she actually wanted versus what she was supposed to want according to her parents' ambitions and society's expectations. Vera had recently given birth to her second child, a baby boy who was healthy and was beautiful in the way that babies are beautiful, when they are wanted and are loved, without conditions or without calculations about what advantages they might provide. Rosalie held the baby and felt longing that was physical and was powerful. The weight of the infant in her arms and the warmth of his small body against her chest, creating desire for motherhood that exceeded any desire she had ever felt for jewels or for clothes or for the social status that her upcoming marriage would provide. Vera's simple home was filled with warmth and was filled with genuine affection. Her husband arriving from work and greeting his wife with a kiss that conveyed real love rather than performing affection for social audience. The walk home from Vera's house on that April evening was supposed to be a short trip through familiar streets in safe neighborhood where wealthy families lived and where crime was rare because poverty was absent. Rosalie wore her best dress and wore the engagement ring that Royce had given her. Her appearance that evening particularly beautiful because she had been visiting and had wanted to show Vera the ring and had wanted to display the evidence of her successful engagement to man from one of Rochester's finest families. The spring evening was pleasant and was mild, the kind of weather that made walking enjoyable and that made Rochester's tree-lined street seem idyllic and seemed safe for a young woman to traverse alone in early evening hours before full darkness had fallen. The street was not empty when Rosalie turned the corner toward her parents' house. The lamplight illuminating group of well-dressed men who were laughing too loudly and who were walking with the unsteady gait that indicated they had been drinking for hours at some private club or some restaurant, where wealthy young men gathered to celebrate their privileges and to enjoy the pleasures that money could purchase. She recognized Royce immediately, despite the distance and despite the poor lighting, his distinctive profile and his expensive suit marking him clearly as her fiancé, even before he turned and saw her walking toward him. His friends were with him, men she had met at various social functions and whose names she knew, but whose characters she had never considered beyond their social credentials and their family, connections that made them acceptable companions for the king heir. Royce called out to her with enthusiasm that seemed excessive even for a reunion between engaged couple, his voice carrying the slurred quality that alcohol produced and that made his words run together in ways that would have been embarrassing in social setting, but that his friends seemed to find amusing based on their laughter and their encouragement. He told his friends that this was his Rose, his beautiful Rose, who was going to be his wife, and who was the most beautiful girl in New York, and probably the most beautiful girl in America, or possibly in the entire world. The pride in his voice was possessive rather than affectionate, his tone suggesting that she was acquisition rather than person, and that her beauty was trophy he had won through his pursuit and through his family status that had made her parents agree to the engagement, despite whatever reservations they might have had about his character or his suitability as husband. His friends surrounded her as she tried to continue walking toward her house, their bodies blocking her path, and their attention focused on her appearance with the intensity that made her uncomfortable in ways she had not felt during normal social interactions where male attention was expected and was manageable through polite conversation and through established social protocols. They commented on her beauty with crudeness that shocked her, their language crossing boundaries that sober men would have maintained and that drunk men apparently felt free to violate when their inhibitions were reduced by alcohol and when group dynamics encouraged behavior that individuals might have restrained. Royce grabbed her arm with force that hurt, his fingers digging into her flesh through the fabric of her dress as he pulled her closer to show her to his friends like she was object rather than human being with autonomy and with right to leave situation that was becoming frightening. The assault began with Royce's kiss that was brutal rather than affectionate, his mouth pressing against hers with violence that split her lip and that made her taste blood while his friends laughed and encouraged him to show them what he owned and what they could never have because she belonged to him. Through the engagement that gave him rights over her body that she had never consented to and had never imagined he would claim in streets surrounded by witnesses who were participating rather than protecting. She tried to pull away, but his grip was too strong, and his friends were blocking her escape routes, their bodies forming cage around her that made resistance futile and that made screaming seem pointless, when no one would intervene on behalf of a girl who was engaged to be married, and who was therefore already property of man, who was claiming his rights in public display of ownership. The beating happened simultaneously with the violation, Royce's fists hitting her face and hitting her body while he told her she was beautiful and told her she was his and told her she should be grateful that he had chosen her from all the other girls who would have done anything to be in her position. His friends participated with enthusiasm that suggested they had done this before or had wanted to do this before but had never had opportunity or had never had permission from someone with Royce's status and Royce's confidence that consequences would not follow from actions that would destroy other men, but that would barely inconvenience someone with the King family's power and the King family's connections to legal system and to social structure that protected wealthy men from accountability. Her dress was torn and was ruined, the beautiful fabric that had been chosen to display her beauty now being used to humiliate her and to expose her body to men who had no right to see her and who had no right to touch her, but who were taking what they wanted because they could, and because Royce had given them permission through his own actions and through his encouragement of their participation in violence that was recreational for them, but was destroying her life and was destroying her future and was destroying her very self in ways that she knew instinctively she would never recover from, even if she somehow survived the physical trauma. The pain was extraordinary and was overwhelming, her bones breaking under the force of their kicks and their blows, her ribs cracking and puncturing her lungs and making breathing difficult and making each attempt to draw air into her damaged body an agony that competed with all the other sources of pain that were radiating from every part of her that they had touched and had violated. Her face was being destroyed by Royce's fists, the beauty that had been her greatest asset and had been the source of her value being systematically demolished by the man who had claimed to love that beauty and who had claimed to want to possess it forever through marriage. The irony was not lost on her, even through the pain and through the shock. The recognition that her beauty had attracted this violence and that her beauty was being destroyed by the violence it had attracted, creating terrible symmetry that felt like punishment for vanity or punishment for pride, even though she knew intellectually that no one deserved this regardless of their flaws or their mistakes. They left her in the street when they were finished, her broken body lying in the gutter like refuse that needed to be disposed of. But that was not worth the effort of actual disposal. Royce's last words to her were apology that was not sincere, his tone suggesting he was sorry that he had damaged his property before the wedding, but that the damage was her fault for walking alone and for tempting him, and for being so beautiful that he could not control himself when he saw her. His friends laughed as they walked away, their conversation already moving to other topics and other pleasures they would pursue that evening. The violence against Rosalie apparently being minor entertainment rather than being serious crime or being act that would haunt them or would trouble their consciences during the years that would follow. She was dying, and she knew she was dying. The blood loss and the internal injuries that she could feel but could not see, making survival impossible without medical intervention that she could not summon because her voice was not working and because no one was passing by to find her and to help her. The pain was fading into numbness that spread from her extremities toward her core, the cold replacing sensation in her fingers and in her toes, and gradually moving up her limbs toward her torso, where her damaged organs were failing and were shutting down in sequence that would eventually stop her heart and would end her life on street corner 3 blocks from her parents' house, where she had been expected for dinner hours earlier. Carlisle Cullen found her sometime later when the night had grown fully dark and when the street was empty except for her dying body that he almost missed seeing in the shadows where they had left her. He was Doctor, who had recently arrived in Rochester and who was walking home from hospital where he worked night shifts that accommodated his unusual condition and that allowed him to help people without exposing himself to sunlight that would reveal his nature. The smell of her blood reached him before he saw her, the scent triggering thirst that he had learned to control through centuries of practice, but that still required conscious effort to resist when fresh human blood was abundant and was easily accessible. His horror at her condition was genuine and was visible in his expression when he knelt beside her and assessed her injuries with experienced medical eye that recognized immediately that she was beyond saving through conventional medicine or through any intervention that human doctor could provide in hospital or in surgical theatre. Her face was destroyed beyond what most people would recognize as human. The beauty that had defined her existence obliterated by violence that had been thorough and had been systematic in its destruction. Her body was broken in ways that made survival impossible, her internal bleeding too extensive, and her organ damage too severe for her to live more than minutes or perhaps hours if she was extraordinarily resilient. The decision to transform her was not made lightly or made quickly. Despite the urgency of her condition, Carlyle's moral framework requiring him to consider whether giving her immortality without her consent was justified even when alternative was allowing her to die in street from injuries inflicted by monsters who had destroyed her for entertainment. He had transformed others before and had regretted some of those transformations when the recipients had not adjusted well to vampire existence or had not accepted the vegetarian lifestyle he practiced and had instead become predators themselves. But looking at her broken body and looking at her face, that even through its destruction showed evidence of the extraordinary beauty she had possessed, he made decision that he believed was merciful even though he knew it would condemn her to existence she had not chosen and had not wanted. He carried her to his home with speed that human observer would not have been able to track, his supernatural abilities allowing him to move through the city without being seen and without leaving trail that would lead authorities to investigate what had happened to the banker's daughter who had gone missing. His home was isolated enough that her screams during transformation would not be heard by neighbors or by passers-by who might investigate strange sounds and might discover vampire in residence. He laid her on bed in room he had prepared for emergencies and bit her in the necessary locations to ensure venom would spread efficiently through her dying system and would reach her heart before death became irreversible. The 3 days of transformation were agony beyond anything Rosalie had experienced during the assault, the burning in her veins making the physical trauma seem almost pleasant by comparison, because physical pain had limits, but the fire transforming her cells apparently had no limits and had no mercy and had no end that she could anticipate or could hope for, when each second felt like hour and each hour felt like eternity. She could not scream despite wanting to scream because her damaged throat would not produce sound and because the venom was paralyzing her muscles and was preventing any external expression of the internal torment that was consuming her completely. Carlyle stayed with her throughout the transformation, his presence constant and his voice occasionally breaking through the fire to explain what was happening and to promise that the pain would end and that she would survive and that she would emerge from this ordeal as something different and something more durable than the fragile human body that had been so easily destroyed by men who had treated her like disposable object. His words meant nothing to her during the worst of the burning, because comprehension was impossible when pain was absolute. But later she would remember that he had been there and that he had not abandoned her to suffer alone, even though he was responsible for the suffering and was responsible for the transformation that she had not consented to and had not wanted. The burning intensified as the transformation neared completion, the fire concentrating in her heart and in her chest as the venom completed its work of stopping her heart and of reorganizing her cells into vampire configuration that would sustain her existence indefinitely without requiring the biological processes that had maintained her human life. The final moments were simultaneously the worst and the best of the transformation, the pain reaching crescendo that felt like death itself before suddenly stopping completely and leaving her in silence and in stillness that felt like peace after 3 days of uninterrupted agony. Waking as vampire was disorienting and was revelatory, her senses suddenly clear and suddenly sharp in ways that human perception had never approached, and that made the world seem different and seem new, despite being the same room and the same surroundings where she had suffered through transformation. She could hear Carlyle's breathing in the next room and could hear his heartbeat that was absent because vampires had no heartbeat, and could hear sounds from the street outside that human ears would never detect. Her vision was sharper and was more detailed, the colors more vivid, and the textures more defined than human vision could process. Her body felt strong and felt powerful in ways that were completely foreign to the fragility she had experienced as human, whose bones could break and whose flesh could tear under relatively minor force. The mirror showed her what she had become, her face healed and restored, but magnified beyond even her human beauty, into something that was almost painful to look at, because vampire transformation enhanced whatever beauty existed and created appearance that was designed to attract human prey through supernatural loveliness that overcame human caution and human self-preservation instincts. Her face was perfect again, but was wrong somehow. The beauty too extreme and too flawless to be human and to be natural, even though it looked natural to eyes that could not detect the subtle wrongness that marked vampire appearance. The realization of what she had lost hit her with force that made her wish that transformation had failed and had allowed her to die in the street where Royce had left her. She would never age and would never die. Her immortality stretching ahead infinitely without end and without escape from existence she had not chosen. She would never have children because vampire bodies did not change and did not create life. The transformation having frozen her biology at 18 years old and having eliminated the possibility of motherhood, that she had wanted more than she had wanted beauty or wanted wealth or wanted any of the things her human life had promised. She would never be human again and would never experience the simple pleasures and the simple milestones that human existence offered. Her future now consisting of endless repetition and endless pretense as she lived among humans while being predator designed to hunt them. Carlyle's attempts to comfort her were well-intentioned, but were ineffective because no words could restore what transformation had stolen, and no explanations could justify his decision to save her life by ending her humanity. She raged at him with fury that surprised her with its intensity, her vampire strength making her voice carry power and making her movements dangerous in ways she had not anticipated, when anger made her want to destroy things and to hurt the person responsible for condemning her to immortal existence. He accepted her rage with patience and with understanding, his own guilt about causing her pain evident in his expression and in his refusal to defend himself against accusations that were justified even if his intentions had been good. The thirst announced itself gradually during her first hours as vampire, the burning in her throat different from transformation burning, but equally demanding and equally impossible to ignore when it intensified beyond discomfort into need that felt biological and felt imperative. Carlyle explained his vegetarian philosophy and explained that they could survive on animal blood rather than human blood. His centuries of practice having proven that alternative diet was sustainable even if it was less satisfying and less complete than human blood would be. Rosalie's choice to follow his diet came not from moral conviction, but from aesthetic revulsion at the idea of being monster who kill humans for food. Her vanity and her pride making her unwilling to become the kind of creature that would justify the violence that had been done to her by making her into actual monster, rather than allowing her to remain victim, who had been transformed against her will. The 2 years between Rosalie's transformation in April of 1933 and her revenge in the spring of 1935 were spent learning to control her new vampire abilities while planning methodical destruction of the men who had destroyed her human life and had stolen her future. Carlyle taught her how to hunt animals without leaving evidence that would alert humans to supernatural presence in their territory. His patient instruction covering techniques for approaching prey and for killing efficiently and for disposing of remains in ways that would not create patterns that hunters or that naturalists might notice and might investigate. She learned to manage her thirst through constant vigilance and through avoiding situations where human blood would be abundant and would be tempting beyond her ability to resist. Her newborn strength making her dangerous to humans even when she had no intention of harming them, because accidents could happen when vampire reflexes operated at speeds that did not allow time for conscious decision-making. Her physical abilities exceeded even normal newborn vampire capabilities. Her strength and her speed exceptional enough that Carlyle commented on her unusual power and on her unusual grace that suggested she would be a formidable fighter if circumstances ever required her to defend herself or to defend others. She practiced controlling her movements to appear human when necessary. The constant effort required to slow her speed and to limit her strength, teaching her discipline and teaching her how to exist among humans without revealing her nature through careless displays of supernatural ability. The control she developed was impressive for someone so newly transformed, her determination to master her vampire nature coming from pride that refused to accept being controlled by biology or by instincts that she considered beneath her dignity and beneath her self-image as person who chose her actions rather than being driven by base appetites. The planning of her revenge occupied her thoughts during every moment when she was not actively learning survival skills or practicing control. Her vampire mind capable of holding complex plans and capable of considering multiple scenarios and contingencies with clarity that human cognition could never achieve. She tracked Royce's movements through newspaper society columns and through careful observation that allowed her to learn his routines and to identify his patterns without revealing her continued existence to anyone who might warn him or might interfere with her plans. She discovered that he had married someone else just months after her disappearance. The wedding announcement describing the union as joyful occasion and describing the bride as lovely girl from good family who was fortunate to be marrying the king heir whose previous engagement had ended tragically when his fiancée had disappeared and was presumed dead. The irony of Royce mourning her while simultaneously marrying her replacement was not lost on Rosalie. His performance of grief apparently convincing enough that society accepted his new marriage without questioning the timing or questioning his sincerity. She learned the names of his friends who had participated in the assault. Her memory of that night crystalline and perfect, in the way that vampire memory preserved every detail and every sensation without the merciful fading that human memory provided to traumatic experiences. There were 5 men in total, including Royce, each of them from wealthy families, and each of them continuing their lives without apparent consequences or apparent guilt about what they had done to her in that April street. Carlyle knew about her plans because Vampire Household made privacy impossible when supernatural senses allowed everyone to hear conversations and to track movements and to notice absences that indicated someone was pursuing activities they preferred to keep secret. His response to learning about her intended revenge was complicated. His moral framework opposing killing even when killing might be justified by the crimes the victims had committed against innocent person who had been destroyed by their violence. But he did not forbid her revenge and did not attempt to stop her through alpha authority or through emotional manipulation. His respect for her agency and his recognition of her right to seek justice in a world where legal system would never punish wealthy men for crimes against women overriding his personal opposition to violence. The symbolic choice of her wedding dress for the revenge killings was deliberate and was meaningful. The dress representing the future that had been stolen from her and representing the perfect bride image that she had been cultivated to embody before that image had been shattered, along with her body and her life. She had the dress made by a seamstress who specialized in bridal gowns, the design traditional and the fabric expensive in ways that matched what her actual wedding dress would have been if the wedding had occurred, and if she had married Royce and had become Mrs. King, as her parents had planned. Wearing the dress while hunting the men who had destroyed her created psychological warfare that Rosalie found satisfying. The image of beautiful bride appearing in their final moments, serving as reminder of what they had done and serving as symbol of justice that was delayed but was inevitable. The first kill was John, one of Royce's closest friends, who had been enthusiastic participant in the assault and who had laughed the loudest when they had left her dying in the street. She found him leaving his club on night in February of 1935, his path home taking him through relatively isolated streets where witnesses would be unlikely and where his screams would not be heard by anyone who might intervene. She appeared before him in her wedding dress, the white fabric luminous in the streetlight, and her vampire beauty making her seem like apparition or like angel descending to deliver judgment. His recognition of her was immediate despite the 2 years that had passed and despite his assumption that she was dead. His face showing terror that was gratifying to Rosalie, who had suffered terror herself and who wanted him to experience a fraction of what she had experienced. She spoke to him before killing him, her voice calm and her words chosen, to make him understand that she had returned specifically for revenge and that his death was payment for what he had done to her. He tried to run, but vampire speed made escape impossible, her hand catching his shoulder and throwing him against brick wall with force that shattered bones and that left him gasping in pain that was similar to pain he had helped inflict on her human body. She did not drink his blood despite the thirst that his fear scent triggered and despite the temptation that fresh human blood presented to newborn vampire whose control was still developing. The refusal to drink from him was a point of pride that Rosalie maintained throughout all the revenge killings, her determination to not become monster who fed on humans, keeping her separate from the predator nature that vampire transformation had given her. His death was swift but was violent, her strength sufficient to tear him apart in ways that ensured he could not survive even if someone found him immediately after she left. She destroyed the body thoroughly enough that investigation would struggle to determine cause of death or to identify what kind of weapon could have inflicted the damage that vampire strength had created. The kill brought satisfaction, but brought no joy. The emptiness she felt afterwards surprising her because she had expected revenge to feel triumphant, or to feel healing in ways that would begin to repair the damage that had been done to her. The second and third kills followed similar pattern over the next weeks, each of Royce's friends dying alone and dying terrified after seeing Rosalie in her wedding dress, and after understanding that the girl they had destroyed had returned to destroy them. She varied her methods slightly with each kill to prevent investigators from connecting the deaths through common patterns that might alert remaining victims, or that might bring unwanted attention from authorities who would investigate multiple deaths among Rochester's elite young men. The newspaper coverage of the disappearances was extensive. The mystery of what had happened to these promising young men from good families creating speculation and creating fear among other wealthy families who wondered if their own sons might be targeted by whatever force was taking Rochester's finest. Royce was saved for last. Rosalie's planning for his death more elaborate and more personal than the planning for his friends who had been supporting players in her destruction, but who had not been the primary architect. She waited until late April of 1935, exactly 2 years after the assault, the anniversary date holding symbolic meaning that Rosalie wanted Royce to understand when she appeared before him. She found him alone in his home office, where he was working late on business matters, his wife already asleep upstairs, and his servants dismissed for the evening in-house that was supposed to be secure and was supposed to be safe for a man of his wealth and his position. She entered through window that she opened silently, her appearance in the wedding dress making Royce freeze in terror that was absolute when he recognized her face and recognized the dress and understood that she had come for him specifically. The conversation before his death lasted longer than the conversations with his friends. Rosalie, wanting him to fully comprehend what he had created through his violence and wanting him to understand that his actions had consequences, even when those consequences were delayed by circumstances that he could not have anticipated. She told him about the transformation and about the pain and about the immortal existence that she had been condemned to because Carlyle had found her dying body and had chosen to save her in the only way available to him. Royce begged for mercy and begged for his life, his pleas invoking his new wife and invoking his family and invoking everything except the crime he had committed against Rosalie, because acknowledging that crime would require admitting guilt that he apparently still could not accept even when facing death at the hands of his victim. She felt nothing but contempt for his cowardice and for his refusal to take responsibility, her mercy extending only to making his death relatively quick rather than prolonged, despite her desire to make him suffer, as she had suffered during the assault and during the transformation that had followed. The kill was efficient and was final, her vampire strength ending his life in seconds and leaving his body destroyed beyond what investigators would be able to explain through conventional weapons or conventional violence. She burned his office using fire. She started with lamp oil, the flames destroying evidence and creating chaos that would complicate investigation and would prevent clear determination of what had happened to Rochester's prominent banker who had died mysteriously in his own home. The aftermath of completing her revenge brought no relief and brought no healing. The emptiness Rosalie felt after killing Royce more profound than the emptiness she had felt after the earlier kills. She'd expected revenge to restore something, or to repair something, or to provide closure that would allow her to move forward into her immortal existence with peace, or with satisfaction that justice had been served. Instead, she felt hollow and felt lost. The purpose that had sustained her through 2 years of planning and executing revenge suddenly gone, and leaving her without direction, or without meaning in existence that stretched infinitely ahead without end. The return to Carlisle was quiet and was humble. Rosalie's pride damaged by the recognition that revenge had been futile, and that killing her attackers had not restored her humanity, or had not healed the wounds that transformation had inflicted on her soul. Carlisle accepted her return without judgment and without questions about what she had done, his presence steady and his compassion genuine, despite her continued resentment of the choice he had made to transform her without her consent. Esme Clearwater had joined their household by 1935, her own transformation having occurred after suicide attempt that Carlisle had interrupted by transforming her into vampire who could survive the fall that should have killed her human body. Rosalie's initial reaction to Esme was jealousy and was resentment that Carlisle had found companion and had found love when Rosalie remained alone and remained angry. But Esme's gentle nature and Esme's maternal warmth gradually won Rosalie's acceptance and gradually provided the mother figure that Rosalie had lost when her human life had ended. The years between 1935 and 1950 were characterized by restless movement and by the repetitive pattern of vampire existence that required constant relocation to avoid detection, when unchanging appearance made extended residence in any single community impossible beyond few years at most. Carlisle's household moved from Rochester to other cities throughout the Northeast and eventually to the Midwest, each relocation requiring new identities and new cover stories that explained the presence of unusually beautiful family whose members never aged and whose nocturnal habits sometimes created suspicion among neighbors who noticed odd patterns even when the Cullens were careful about maintaining human pretense. Rosalie adapted to the nomadic lifestyle with difficulty, her human life having been rooted in single community and in established social networks that immortal existence made impossible to maintain, when friendships could not survive the revelation that she was vampire, and when relationships required constant lies and constant performance. Edward Cullen joined the family in 1918 after influenza pandemic had killed his human family and had nearly killed Edward himself before Carlisle had transformed him at his dying mother's request. Edward's presence in the household created immediate friction with Rosalie, who found his perpetual brooding and his mind-reading ability equally irritating, their personalities clashing in ways that created sibling-like antagonism without the underlying affection that actual siblings might have developed through shared childhood and through shared experiences. Edward could hear her thoughts and could hear her resentment of vampire existence, his judgment of her vanity, and his criticism of her attitude toward immortality, making her defensive and making her more committed to maintaining the pride and the appearance-focused behavior that he found shallow and that he considered unworthy of someone with eternity to develop deeper interests and deeper character. The role of most beautiful vampire in any room was one that Rosalie occupied automatically, and was one that she cultivated deliberately through careful attention to fashion and through maintaining her appearance at impossible standards of perfection that vampire nature made achievable, and that human women could never match regardless of their efforts or their natural beauty. Her vanity was armor that protected her from the emptiness she felt about her existence. The focus on appearance providing something she could control when everything else about her life felt controlled by circumstances and by biology and by Carlyle's leadership that she respected but sometimes resented when his decisions required her to relocate or required her to abandon routines she had established in whatever community they were currently occupying. Human boys' reactions to her beauty were predictable and were unwelcome, their attention ranging from shy admiration to aggressive pursuit that sometimes required Carlyle to intervene when boys would not accept rejection or would not respect boundaries that Rosalie established through cold dismissal and through avoidance. She attended high school repeatedly as the family moved from town to town, the performance of being teenage student becoming routine that she could execute flawlessly while feeling nothing but contempt for the charade and nothing but bitterness about being frozen at 18 years old and being forced to repeat adolescence eternally, while human girls, her physical age, grew into adults and grew into mothers and lived the lives that Rosalie wanted desperately but could never have. The bitterness about her immortality intensified rather than faded as decades passed, each year making the loss of her humanity more permanent and making the future she had wanted more impossible to reclaim. She watched human women marry and watched them become pregnant and watched them hold babies and raise children, the simple biological processes that human existence allowed, creating envy that was physical and was painful in ways that other vampires apparently did not feel or didn't understand when they tried to comfort her or tried to convince her that immortality offered compensations that mortal existence could never provide. Edward's contentment with vampire nature particularly irritated her because his acceptance of what they were felt like betrayal of what they had lost. His philosophical approach to immortality seeming like surrender rather than like wisdom, when Rosalie believed that properly acknowledging the tragedy of transformation required maintaining permanent grief about humanity's loss. The decades moved through their predictable patterns of war and peace and technological change that transformed human society, while vampire society remained essentially unchanged. The Great Depression and World War II, creating historical events that the Cullens witnessed from their peripheral position as immortal observers who could not fully participate in human history without risking exposure. Rosalie found the 1940s particularly difficult because the war sent young men away from their families and sent young women into factory work and into roles that changed social expectations about what women could do beyond domestic sphere, the expanding possibilities for human women, making Rosalie's frozen existence feel more constrained and feel more limited when she could never have career or have independence or have the freedom that mortal women were beginning to claim through wartime necessity and through gradual social change. The 1950s brought return to traditional gender roles and brought emphasis on domesticity and motherhood that made Rosalie's inability to have children feel more painful and feel more obvious when suburban culture celebrated fertility and celebrated large families as markers of success and as fulfillment of American dream. She watched classmates at whatever high school she was attending talk about their hopes for marriage and for children, their casual assumptions about futures that would include husbands and babies, making Rosalie want to scream or want to reveal what she was just to make them understand that not everyone had access to the futures they took for granted, and that some people would give everything they possessed to trade places with ordinary human girls whose biggest concerns were finding appropriate husbands and raising healthy children. The discovery of Emmett McCarty in the mountains of Tennessee in 1935 happened during a hunting trip when Rosalie had separated from Carlisle and Esme to track deer whose scent had led her away from their planned route and into territory where she found massive young man being mauled by black bear whose attack had already inflicted injuries that would be fatal without immediate medical intervention that was not available in isolated wilderness where Emmett had been hunting alone. Her first instinct was to leave him to die because his death was natural outcome of dangerous situation and because interfering would require either calling for help she could not summon or transforming him into vampire, which she had sworn never to do because she would not condemn anyone else to the existence she hated. But something about his face stopped her from leaving. The innocence in his expression and the youth in his features, reminding her of Vera's baby and reminding her of all the futures that had been stolen when her own life had been destroyed. He was dying quickly from blood loss and from the massive trauma the bear had inflicted, his consciousness fading as she stood over him trying to decide whether mercy meant letting him die human or whether mercy meant saving his life even if saving meant transforming him into creature he had not chosen to become. The decision happened in instant when his eyes opened and looked at her with confusion and with something that might have been hope, his hand reaching toward her in gesture that suggested he trusted her to help him, even though he had no reason to trust beautiful girl appearing in wilderness where no one should be. She carried him over 100 miles to Carlisle without stopping and without slowing despite his weight and despite the difficulty of maintaining speed, while holding his dying body carefully enough to avoid inflicting additional injuries. The journey took hours of constant running through forests and through mountains, her vampire endurance making the distance manageable even when carrying burden that would have been impossible for human to transport even short distance. She begged Carlisle to transform Emmett, despite knowing the pain that transformation would cause, and despite knowing that she was condemning him to immortal existence he had not requested, her justification being that he was dying anyway, and that vampire existence was better than death, even if vampire existence was worse than human life. Carlisle agreed to perform the transformation after examining Emmett's injuries and confirming that human medicine could not save him and that death was inevitable without supernatural intervention. The 3 days of Emmett's transformation were difficult for Rosalie, who waited nearby and who listened to his screams and who felt guilt about causing his suffering, even though she had also saved his life and had given him existence that would continue indefinitely, rather than ending in Tennessee mountains, where his body would have been consumed by scavengers and would have been forgotten, except by family who would have searched unsuccessfully for son who never returned from hunting trip. Emmett's awakening as vampire was remarkably different from Rosalie's own awakening. His immediate acceptance of his new nature and his enthusiasm about vampire abilities creating stark contrast with her horror and her resentment when she had first understood what Carlyle had made her. Emmett loved being vampire from the first moment of consciousness, his joy at his strength and his speed, and his enhanced senses, making him seem like child discovering wonderful toy, rather than like person mourning loss of humanity and loss of normal future. His attitude both charmed and irritated Rosalie, who could not understand how someone could be so happy about transformation that she considered curse and considered tragedy. But his genuine cheerfulness and his lack of bitterness gradually softened her defenses and gradually made her want to protect his innocence and preserve his happiness even when she could not share those feelings herself. His devotion to her was immediate and was absolute. His recognition that she had saved his life, creating gratitude that evolved quickly into love that was uncomplicated and was genuine in ways that Rosalie had never experienced from men who had wanted her for her beauty but had never wanted her for herself. Emmett loved her completely and loved her unconditionally. His affection not dependent on her appearance or on her usefulness, but simply existing because she was Rosalie and because he had imprinted on her as his savior and as his mate during those first confused moments after transformation, when she had been the first face he saw and the first voice he heard. Their connection was instantaneous and was powerful, the bond between them forming without effort and without negotiation in ways that made their relationship feel inevitable and feel right, despite the circumstances of their meeting and despite the tragedy of his transformation. Their marriage ceremonies happened multiple times across the decades as they moved to new locations and created new identities, each wedding providing opportunity to celebrate their bond and providing Rosalie with experience of being bride that her human life had promised but had never delivered. Emmett made her laugh in ways that no one else could, his humor and his playfulness breaking through her seriousness and her bitterness and reminding her that immortal existence could include joy, even when it could not include everything she wanted. He understood her grief about not being able to have children and understood her resentment about immortality, but he did not share those feelings and he refused to let her drown in them without at least attempting to pull her toward lighter perspective and toward appreciation for what they did have, rather than focusing exclusively on what they had lost. The inability to give Emmett children was an ongoing source of pain for Rosalie, who recognized that he would have been a wonderful father and that he deserved the large family he had probably imagined having during his human life before the bear attack had ended those possibilities along with ending his mortality. She felt that she had stolen his chance at normal life just as Carlyle had stolen hers. The guilt about transforming him, warring with gratitude that he existed and that he loved her and that he provided anchor in existence that would have been unbearable without his presence and without his unwavering devotion that sustained her through decades of repetition and through decades of grief about futures that would never arrive no matter how many years passed or how many centuries she survived. The arrival of Alice Brandon and Jasper Whitlock in 1950 brought the Cullen Coven to its final composition of 7 members, whose distinct personalities and whose complementary abilities would create a family structure that persisted across the subsequent decades despite occasional tensions and despite the individual struggles that each member experienced with immortal existence. Alice found the Cullens through her visions rather than through chance encounter or through Carlyle's intervention, her precognitive ability showing her exactly where the family would be and exactly when she needed to arrive to join them and to bring Jasper with her. Her arrival was characteristically enthusiastic and characteristically presumptuous. Her confidence that the Cullens would accept her based on visions of future friendships, making her approach them without hesitation and without the caution that most vampires would exercise when seeking to join established coven. Rosalie's initial reaction to Alice was resistance and was suspicion. Her instinct to reject newcomers who threatened to disrupt established family dynamics and who threatened to claim attention and resources that Rosalie believed should remain focused on existing members. Alice's relentless cheerfulness and Alice's persistent attempts at friendship were irritating to Rosalie, who valued her privacy and who valued her position as only female vampire in the household besides Esme. The addition of another woman creating competition and creating comparison that Rosalie had avoided when she had been singular in her beauty and singular in her femininity within the family structure. But Alice's gift for seeing future and Alice's genuine warmth gradually wore down Rosalie's defenses through consistent kindness and through demonstrated loyalty that proved Alice's intentions were genuine rather than manipulative. Jasper Whitlock came with Alice as established partner and as committed vegetarian. Despite his history of violence, and despite his decades fighting in the Southern Vampire Wars, where he had created and had commanded newborn armies for Maria, who had transformed him during the Civil War, and who had used his empathic abilities to control volatile newborn vampires, whose strength made them valuable weapons, but whose lack of control made them dangerous even to their creators. His ability to feel and to manipulate emotions made him aware of Rosalie's pain in ways that other family members could recognize intellectually but could not experience directly. His constant exposure to her grief and her bitterness through his empathic sense, creating understanding and creating sympathy that made him gentle with her even when her behavior towards him was cold or was dismissive during the early years of his residence in the Cullen household. The complete family of 7 vampires created more stable structure than the smaller grouping had provided. The larger numbers making their cover stories more believable when they claimed to be family unit relocating for Carlyle's medical career or for other plausible reasons that humans accepted without excessive questioning. Rosalie's position within the family became more defined as the beautiful one and the difficult one and the grieving one whose pain everyone acknowledged but no one could heal. Her role in family dynamics clear to everyone and accepted as permanent aspect of her character that would persist indefinitely because the source of her grief could never be resolved and could never be eliminated through any intervention or any change in circumstances. The 1950s emphasis on conformity and on traditional family structures actually helped the Cullens maintain their cover because their appearance as prosperous family with multiple children fit perfectly into suburban ideal that dominated American culture during the post-war years. They settled in various communities throughout the decade, each location selected for its proximity to forests for hunting and for its relative isolation that would minimize human contact, while still providing Carlyle with medical career opportunities and providing the younger vampires with high school enrollment that maintained their cover as teenagers who were aging normally through human educational system. Rosalie's performance of being high school student improved with practice and improved with the support of larger sibling group that made the charade more believable and made the daily repetition more tolerable when she had Alice and had Jasper and had Emmett and had Edward to share the experience rather than enduring it alone or with only one or two companions. But the improvement in her ability to perform did not reduce her resentment about being required to perform. Each school year feeling like waste of time and feeling like cruel reminder that she was frozen at 18 and would repeat this particular stage of human development eternally without progressing toward adulthood or toward the life stages that represented meaning and represented purpose in human existence. The human girls who were genuinely 18 years old and who attended school alongside Rosalie talked constantly about their futures and their plans for marriage and for children, their assumptions about weddings and babies and family lives, making Rosalie's participation in these conversations painful and making her withdrawal from female friendships seem like snobbery or seem like coldness when it was actually self-protection against the constant reminders of what she could never have. She watched her classmates date and watched them fall in love and watched them make plans for futures that included husbands and homes and children. The casual ease with which they anticipated these normal human experiences, making Rosalie want to scream about the injustice of her situation or want to reveal her true nature just to make them understand that their complaints about trivial problems were insulting to someone who would trade everything to have their ordinary human concerns. Her relationships with each family member developed distinct patterns that persisted across decades and that defined the interpersonal dynamics within the household. Carlyle remained the father figure she respected but also resented, her gratitude for his continued care and his consistent support warring with her anger about his decision to transform her without her consent, and his refusal to acknowledge that his choice had been wrong, regardless of his good intentions. Esme provided maternal love and provided emotional support that Rosalie accepted more easily than she accepted Carlyle's attempts at comfort. The female bond and the shared experience of having been transformed after trauma, creating connection that allowed Rosalie to be vulnerable with Esme in ways she could not be vulnerable with others. Edward remained her antagonist and her critic, his mind-reading ability giving him access to her thoughts and giving him ammunition for judgments about her vanity and about her self-pity that he expressed through pointed comments and through barely concealed disdain for what he considered her shallow preoccupation with appearance and her ungrateful attitude toward immortality that he had accepted and had found ways to appreciate despite his own struggles with vampire nature. Their mutual irritation was genuine but was also familiar, the sibling-like antagonism providing structure and providing predictable interaction that both of them relied on even when they genuinely annoyed each other and genuinely disagreed about fundamental questions about meaning and about purpose in immortal existence. Alice became the sister Rosalie had never had, their relationship developing slowly from Rosalie's initial resistance into genuine affection that surprised Rosalie with its depth and its importance to her emotional stability. Alice's optimism balanced Rosalie's pessimism, and Alice's focus on future possibilities provided counterweight to Rosalie's focus on past losses. The complementary perspectives creating friendship that enriched both of them, and that provided Rosalie with female companionship she had not realized she needed, until Alice's persistent kindness had created bond that Rosalie valued and protected. Jasper's understanding of her pain through his empathic ability created unspoken connection based on mutual recognition of darkness and mutual respect for survival despite trauma. Their shared experience of carrying grief that others could not fully understand, making them allies even when they were not close in the way that Alice and Rosalie were close. Emmett remained her anchor and her joy, his love providing the one unambiguously positive element in her immortal existence, and his presence making eternity bearable when it would otherwise have been punishment rather than gift. Their relationship was characterized by genuine partnership and by mutual devotion that transcended the resentment Rosalie felt about vampire nature. Emmett's existence proving that transformation could occasionally produce outcomes that justified the cost, even when most transformations produced only tragedy and only loss. The decades from 1950 through 1990 passed in blur of repeated high school performances and repeated relocations, each move requiring new identities and new cover stories, but following essentially the same pattern of settling into community and maintaining human pretense until unchanging appearance made departure necessary. Different towns and different schools provided superficial variety, but could not disguise the fundamental repetition that characterized immortal existence. The same experiences cycling endlessly with only minor variations that did not constitute actual change or actual progress toward any goal or any destination that would provide meaning or would provide completion. The move to Forks, Washington in 2003 represented another relocation in the endless series of relocations that characterized Cullen family existence. The small logging town on the Olympic Peninsula, selected for its persistent cloud cover that would allow the family more freedom of movement during daytime hours without risking exposure through sparkling skin that sunlight would reveal to any human observer. The town was isolated and was economically depressed, the timber industry's decline having reduced employment opportunities and having created population loss that made Forks feel like community in slow retreat from prosperity and from relevance. The high school was small enough that the Cullen family's arrival created significant disruption to established social hierarchies, their collective beauty and their obvious wealth, making them immediate objects of fascination and making them immediate targets of gossip and speculation about who they were and why they had chosen Forks as their new residence. Rosalie had performed the role of high school student so many times that the routine was automatic and was effortless. Her knowledge of how to navigate social dynamics and how to maintain appropriate distance from human classmates, refined through decades of practice in similar schools in similar small towns. She projected cold perfection that discouraged attempts at friendship and that prevented romantic interest from developing into persistent pursuit. Her beauty attracting attention, but her demeanor making clear that attention was unwelcome and would not be rewarded with reciprocation or with encouragement. The performance was exhausting despite its familiarity, each day requiring her to pretend interest in subjects she had mastered long ago, and to pretend ignorance of topics she knew better than the teachers who were instructing her. The first 2 years in Forks passed without significant incident beyond the normal challenges of maintaining cover and maintaining pretense. The family settling into patterns that had served them well in previous locations and that would serve them adequately until the inevitable departure that would occur, when aging would need to be explained or when some accident would threaten to reveal their true nature. Rosalie's relationship with Emmett provided stability and provided joy that made the repetition tolerable. Their private time together offering escape from the performance and offering genuine connection that reminded her why immortal existence could be endured, even when it could not be fully enjoyed. January of 2005 brought Isabella Swan to Forks High School. The police chief's daughter arriving from Phoenix to live with her father in arrangement that apparently resulted from her mother's remarriage and from complicated family dynamics that Rosalie neither knew about nor cared about, beyond recognizing the new student would temporarily disrupt established social patterns. Bella's appearance was unremarkable by normal human standards. Her brown hair and brown eyes and pale skin, creating overall impression of ordinary prettiness that would not have attracted particular attention, except for the fact that she was new and that small schools treated new students as noteworthy events regardless of their actual qualities or their actual personalities. Edward's reaction to Bella Swan was immediate and was dangerous. His struggle to control his thirst in her presence during that first biology class, creating crisis that required family meeting and that required serious discussion about whether Edward's presence in the school had become untenable liability that threatened the entire family's security. Rosalie's initial concern was purely practical and was purely focused on family safety. Her recognition that Edward's obsession with the Swan girl could expose them all to discovery, making her advocate strongly for immediate departure from Forks before Edward's lack of control created disaster that would force them to run anyway, but would force them to run after exposure, rather than before exposure, when departure could be managed carefully and could be executed without leaving suspicious circumstances. Edward's refusal to leave and his insistence that he could manage his thirst and could maintain control made Rosalie furious, because his selfishness was risking everyone's safety for the sake of his fascination with one ordinary human girl, whose blood apparently sang to him in ways that made her irresistible, despite the danger that drinking from her would create. The family's decision to allow Edward to remain and to attempt to manage the situation rather than relocating immediately represented Carlisle's faith in Edward's control and represented the family's general indulgence of Edward's wishes. The pattern of accommodating his desires frustrating Rosalie, who believed that her concerns about safety were being dismissed because Edward's happiness was being prioritized over legitimate worries about exposure. The development of Edward and Bella's relationship throughout the spring of 2005 was disturbing to Rosalie on multiple levels that went beyond simple concern about family security and that touched on deeper issues about choice and about mortality and about the value of human life that Edward seemed willing to risk for the sake of romantic relationship that Rosalie considered foolish and considered dangerous. Bella's willingness to spend time with Edward despite the obvious strangeness of his behavior and despite the clear indications that he was different from normal humans suggested either that she was remarkably perceptive or that she was remarkably reckless. both possibilities creating problems that could threaten the family's continued residence in Forks and could threaten their ability to maintain their cover as normal family, whose unusual beauty was their only remarkable characteristic. The revelation that Bella had discovered their true nature and had accepted Edward despite knowing he was vampire created new crisis that required family vote about whether to transform her or to kill her, or to allow Edward to continue the relationship with human who knew their secret and who could expose them through careless comment or through deliberate revelation if the relationship ended badly. Rosalie's vote against transforming Bella was immediate and was absolute. Her opposition based on multiple layers of reasoning that range from practical concerns about adding newborn vampire to the family to philosophical objections about condemning someone to immortal existence they had not chosen and had not earned through dying circumstances that left transformation as only alternative to death. Her monologue to Bella about her human life and about her transformation was a rare moment of vulnerability that Rosalie allowed herself because she believed that Bella needed to understand what she was choosing and needed to understand what she would be losing if Edward transformed her into vampire. She told Bella the story of her human life and her assault and her transformation with detail that she normally kept private. The sharing of her trauma designed to illustrate that vampire existence was not romantic fantasy, but was loss and was grief, and was permanent separation from everything that made human life meaningful and made human life precious. The explanation of why she would trade everything to be human again was heartfelt and was genuine. Rosalie's desperation to make Bella understand that mortality was gift rather than limitation, coming from her deep conviction that Bella was making a catastrophic mistake by choosing immortality when she could choose normal human life instead. Bella's response to Rosalie's story was respectful, but was unconvinced, her love for Edward apparently outweighing all rational arguments about the cost of transformation and all warnings about the permanence of vampire existence that would deny her the possibility of children and would deny her the possibility of aging and dying naturally surrounded by family and by descendants who would carry her genetic legacy forward into future generations. Rosalie found Bella's casual dismissal of these concerns infuriating because it demonstrated fundamental failure to appreciate what human life offered and what vampire transformation would steal. The willingness to throw away mortality for the sake of being with Edward forever striking Rosalie as selfish and as short-sighted and as insulting to everyone who had lost their humanity without choosing to lose it. The jealousy Rosalie felt toward Bella was complex and was multifaceted, combining resentment of Bella's ability to choose her fate when Rosalie had been given no choice, with envy of Bella's humanity and Bella's access to futures that Rosalie could never have regardless of how many centuries she existed. Bella could have children if she remained human, and if she married human man and lived normal human life. The biological possibility that Bella possessed and that Bella was planning to discard through transformation, making Rosalie want to shake her and want to force her to understand that some losses could never be recovered and that some choices could never be reversed once they were made. The anger was genuine, but was also protective. Rosalie's concern for Bella's well-being warring with her resentment of Bella's choices and creating emotional confusion that made their interactions tense and made their relationship adversarial, even when Rosalie's intentions included genuine desire to save Bella from making irreversible mistake. Edward and Rosalie's arguments about Bella's fate became frequent and became heated. Their fundamental disagreement about whether transformation was gift or curse, creating conflict that divided the family and created tension that affected everyone. Through the proximity and through the impossibility of privacy in household, where vampire hearing made all conversations audible to everyone regardless of where they occurred, Edward's position was that Bella's choice should be respected, and that her desire to become vampire to be with him forever justified transformation despite the costs and despite the losses that transformation would create. Rosalie's position was that Bella's choice was uninformed and was influenced by Edward's presence and by romantic feelings that would fade or would change if Bella lived long enough to experience normal human development and normal human life stages that 18-year-old perspective could not adequately evaluate. Emmett's role as mediator between Rosalie and Edward was consistent with his general function in the family as peacemaker and as source of levity that diffused tensions before they escalated into serious conflicts. He understood Rosalie's pain about Bella's situation and understood her grief about never being able to have children, his own acceptance of their childless existence, not eliminating his empathy for Rosalie's suffering or his recognition that her losses were real and were permanent regardless of how well she adapted to immortal life. His support of Rosalie's position in family discussions was qualified and was gentle. His agreement that transformation should be delayed or should be reconsidered balanced by his acknowledgement that Bella's autonomy mattered and that her choice deserved respect, even if that choice seemed wrong to observers who had different values or different priorities. The wedding planning throughout the summer of 2006 was Alice's domain and was Alice's joy. Her enthusiasm for creating perfect ceremony and perfect celebration, making the preparations elaborate and making the event significant beyond what simple marriage would normally require. Rosalie's participation in the planning was reluctant and was minimal. Her bitterness about watching another human choose vampire existence, making her want to distance herself from the ceremony that would celebrate Bella's choice and would celebrate Edward's victory in convincing Bella to marry him and to accept transformation as price of their eternal partnership. The irony of Rosalie having multiple wedding ceremonies with Emmett across decades while resenting Bella's single wedding was not lost on her. But the difference was that Rosalie's weddings celebrated existing immortality, while Bella's wedding was step toward chosen immortality that Rosalie believed was tragic mistake. The wedding itself, on the 13th of August in 2006, was beautiful in ways that Alice's planning and Alice's vision had ensured. The Cullen house and grounds transformed into fairy tale setting that provided perfect backdrop for ceremony that joined Edward and Bella in marriage, that would precede Bella's transformation by whatever interval Edward had negotiated as delay before he would fulfill his promise to make her vampire. Rosalie attended the wedding because family obligation required her presence, and because refusing to attend would create conflict and would hurt Esme, who wanted family unity during important occasions. But her participation was minimal, and her affect was cold in ways that probably seemed like simple snobbery to guests who did not know the history or did not know the complicated emotions that made watching Bella marry Edward painful for Rosalie. Seeing Bella in her wedding dress and seeing her happiness with Edward created mixed emotions that Rosalie struggled to process. the genuine joy that Bella felt, and the genuine love between the couple, making Rosalie's objections seem petty or seem jealous, even when those objections came from legitimate concern and came from experience that Bella lacked. The beauty of the ceremony and the beauty of Bella's dress reminded Rosalie of her own human wedding plans that had never materialized, and reminded her of the future she had been promised before that future had been destroyed in Rochester Street by men who had treated her like object rather than like person. The comparison was unfair to Bella, whose situation was completely different and whose choice to marry Edward was made freely rather than being made under pressure from ambitious parents. But the emotional resonance was unavoidable when wedding imagery triggered memories that Rosalie had tried to suppress or had tried to forget across decades of immortal existence. The honeymoon departure and the subsequent wait for news about when Edward would transform Bella created anxiety throughout the household, everyone aware that the transformation was coming, but no one knowing exactly when Edward would choose to bite Bella and would choose to begin the 3-day process that would end her humanity and would make her vampire permanently. Rosalie's hope that Edward would delay indefinitely or would change his mind about transforming Bella was unrealistic, but was persistent. Her desire to save Bella from vampire existence, making her cling to possibility that circumstances would intervene, or that Bella would reconsider before the irreversible choice became reality. The phone call from Edward in late August of 2006 brought news that nobody had anticipated and that nobody had believed was possible. His panicked voice explaining that Bella was sick and was returning from the honeymoon early and needed to see Carlisle immediately for reasons that Edward would not explain over the phone, but that clearly terrified him in ways that suggested something catastrophic had occurred during what should have been romantic vacation on private island. The family gathered at the house waiting for their arrival, the tension palpable as everyone speculated about what could have gone wrong and what could have frightened Edward badly enough to cut short the honeymoon and to seek Carlisle's medical expertise for condition that apparently required supernatural intervention rather than human medical care. Bella's appearance when she arrived shocked everyone who saw her. The 2 weeks since the wedding having transformed her from a healthy young bride into an emaciated shadow whose body was clearly being consumed by something internal, and whose pallor suggested serious blood loss or serious organ failure. But the explanation for her condition was more impossible than disease or injury could account for. The pregnancy that Carlisle confirmed through examination representing biological impossibility that vampire law had never documented, and that no one had believed could occur when vampire bodies were frozen and were unchanging and were incapable of the biological processes that human reproduction required. The fetus was growing at an accelerated rate that exceeded human developmental timelines, the hybrid nature creating something that was part vampire and part human, and entirely unprecedented in vampire history that Carlisle knew from his centuries of study and from his extensive reading of vampire texts and vampire oral traditions. The family's immediate division over what to do about the pregnancy revealed fundamental disagreements about life and about choice, and about whether the fetus constituted baby that deserved protection or constituted parasitic threat that was killing Bella and that needed to be removed before it could complete the destruction of her human body. Edward's position was unambiguous and was absolute. His demand that the fetus be aborted immediately coming from his terror that Bella would die, and from his conviction that nothing was worth losing her when he had finally found her and had finally convinced her to marry him and to choose immortal life with him. Carlyle was torn between his respect for life in all forms and his concern for Bella's survival. His medical training telling him that the pregnancy was not viable and was not sustainable, but his philosophical commitments making him reluctant to end potential life without exploring all possible alternatives. Rosalie's instant and fierce protection of the unborn baby surprised everyone, including herself. The intensity of her response to learning about the pregnancy coming from depths she had not fully recognized, and coming from needs she had suppressed for decades of childless, immortal existence. Her motivations were layered and were complex, combining genuine concern for innocent life that deserved chance to exist with desperate desire to finally experience motherhood, even if that motherhood would be vicarious and would be complicated by the baby not being biologically hers. The pregnancy represented possibility that Rosalie had believed was forever close to her, the chance to care for baby and to raise child, and to fulfill maternal instincts that had been frustrated since her transformation had stolen her fertility and had condemned her to eternal childlessness. The protection she offered Bella was unprecedented in their relationship. The alliance between two women who had been adversaries becoming partnership based on shared commitment to preserving the pregnancy despite the danger and despite the opposition from family members who wanted abortion and who believed that Bella's life was more important than fetal life that might not survive birth, even if Bella somehow survived long enough to deliver the hybrid whose needs were destroying its mother from inside. Rosalie became Bella's bodyguard and became her advocate, her vampire strength and her vampire speed making her capable of protecting Bella from family members who might try to force medical intervention that Bella did not want, and that Rosalie would not allow as long as she had power to prevent it. Edward's fury at Rosalie's interference was genuine and was dangerous. His rage at her for encouraging Bella's choice to continue the pregnancy, making him view Rosalie as enemy and as threat to Bella's survival. Their confrontations were heated and were barely controlled. Edward's accusations that Rosalie was using Bella to get the baby she wanted, meeting Rosalie's counter-accusations that Edward was trying to murder his own child because he was too selfish to accept the consequences of his choices and too cowardly to support Bella's decision about her own body and her own pregnancy. The arguments divided the household into factions. Esme and Alice supporting Edward's position that Bella's life should be prioritized, while Emmett reluctantly supported Rosalie's right to protect the pregnancy, even though he understood the other perspective. And even though he worried about both Bella's survival and Rosalie's emotional investment in outcome that might end tragically regardless of which choice was made. Carlyle's position as mediator and as medical authority made him crucial to all discussions about how to proceed. His expertise providing information about the pregnancy's progression and about Bella's deteriorating condition, while his neutrality allowed him to present options without advocating strongly for either abortion or continuation. His respect for Bella's autonomy meant that he would not perform abortion without her consent, regardless of Edward's demands or regardless of medical necessity that might seem obvious to everyone except the pregnant woman whose body was being destroyed, but whose will remained focused on protecting the pregnancy and on giving the baby chance to be born, even if birth cost Bella her human life. Rosalie's devotion during the pregnancy weeks was total and was consuming. Her every moment focused on Bella's care and on the baby's welfare in ways that revealed the depth of her maternal instincts and the extent of her grief about never having children of her own. She prepared blood for Bella to drink when they discovered that human food was being rejected, but that blood provided nutrition that the hybrid fetus could process. The vampire solution to pregnancy complications, making this situation even more bizarre, but making survival marginally more possible when Bella's body was otherwise failing to sustain both herself and the rapidly growing fetus. She read pregnancy books obsessively despite their limited applicability to hybrid pregnancy that followed no known patterns and that created complications that human obstetrics had never encountered. Her determination to understand what was happening and to prepare for birth that would be unlike any birth in medical literature, driving her to research everything available, even when most information was irrelevant to their unique situation. The preparation for the baby's arrival became Rosalie's primary focus. Her planning, including nursery setup and clothing selection, and all the material provisions that baby would need despite uncertainty about whether the baby would survive birth or whether Bella would survive delivery. The shopping trips and the decorating provided distraction from the tension in the household and provided outlet for Rosalie's maternal energy that had nowhere else to direct itself when she could not be pregnant herself and could not create life, but could at least prepare to care for life that someone else was creating through sacrifice that Rosalie understood and respected, even when others viewed Bella's choice as foolish or viewed it as suicidal. Her acceptance of Bella's potential death if the baby survived was pragmatic and was painful. Rosalie's recognition that she would trade Bella's life for the baby's life if forced to choose between them, revealing priorities that horrified Edward and that troubled other family members who believed that known person's life should outweigh potential person's life when choosing between mother and child. But Rosalie's perspective was shaped by her own experience of having her choices stolen, and by her conviction that Bella's choice to risk death for her baby deserved respect and deserved support, regardless of whether others agreed with that choice or understood the reasoning behind it. Bella's deteriorating condition throughout September became impossible to ignore or to minimize. The fetus breaking her ribs through its movements and breaking her pelvis through its growth and draining her blood faster than transfusions could replace it, when the hybrid's needs exceeded what human body could provide without being consumed in the process. The internal injuries were severe and were accumulating. Carlisle's examinations revealing damage to organs and damage to skeletal structure that would be fatal without transformation to preserve Bella's life after delivery, if delivery could be achieved before the fetus killed her from inside. The baby was strong beyond what human fetus should be capable of. The vampire heritage providing strength and providing durability that made it dangerous to its human mother, whose fragile body could not contain the hybrid without breaking under the strain. Edward's desperation manifested as repeated attempts to convince Bella to choose abortion while she still could survive the procedure. His willingness to promise her anything, including his own death, if she would just save herself, revealing the depth of his love and revealing his terror that he would lose her to the pregnancy that he had caused through his moment of weakness on their honeymoon, when he had given in to her demands for physical intimacy that his control had barely managed, and that his frozen body had apparently been capable of, despite centuries suggesting that vampire male fertility was impossible. The guilt he felt about causing the pregnancy added to his desperation to end it. His recognition that he had created the situation that was killing Bella, making him willing to do anything to save her, even if saving her required destroying the baby that was half his and half hers. Jacob Black's offer to father Bella's children, if she would, abort the hybrid, represented desperate attempt from outsider who loved Bella and who wanted to give her the future she apparently wanted without requiring her to die for it. The proposal that she could have human babies with him and could live normal life and could be mother in safe, sustainable way made logical sense, but made no emotional sense to Bella, who had never considered Jacob as potential father for her children. Despite their friendship, and despite the love she admitted feeling for him alongside her stronger love for Edward, Rosalie's reaction to Jacob's offer was complex. Her recognition that his solution would save Bella's life and would give Bella children warring with her commitment to protecting the current pregnancy and her unwillingness to advocate for abortion, even when abortion might lead to different pregnancy that would be safer and would be more conventional. The presence of Jacob's werewolf pack around the Cullen house during the final weeks of pregnancy created additional tension and created additional complications. The traditional enemies forced into proximity through Jacob's determination to protect Bella and through the pack's concern about the hybrid creature being born so close to their territory. Rosalie's interactions with the werewolves were hostile and were barely civil. Her contempt for their interference and her resentment of their challenge to her authority over Bella's care, making cooperation difficult and making the atmosphere in the house even more strained than it already was through the internal family conflicts about the pregnancy. September 10th of 2006 brought the birth suddenly and brought it violently when the baby's movements became too forceful and when Bella's body finally reached the limit of what it could endure without catastrophic failure. The breaking of Bella's spine and the rupturing of her uterus created emergency that required immediate delivery through whatever means necessary, the situation deteriorating from dangerous to critical within seconds as blood loss and organ failure threatened to kill Bella before the baby could be extracted and before transformation could be initiated to save her life. Rosalie's presence in the room during delivery was planned and was necessary. Her role as assistant to Carlisle important because her strength and her speed would be needed to manage complications and to help with delivery that would require supernatural abilities to complete successfully. The smell of Bella's blood when the placenta ruptured overwhelmed Rosalie's control in ways that decades of practice and centuries of discipline should have prevented, but that newborn strength thirst triggered anyway when massive quantities of fresh human blood filled the room and filled Rosalie's senses with scent that made her throat burn and made her instincts scream to drink and to feed regardless of the consequences or regardless of the victim's identity. Her loss of control was brief but was complete. The moment when she lunged toward Bella, representing failure that Rosalie would feel shame about for years afterward, when she remembered that her weakness had required her forcible removal from the delivery room and had required Edward and Jacob to to intervene to protect Bella from attack that Rosalie had not consciously chosen, but that her vampire nature had initiated without consulting her human reasoning or her human affection for the woman who was bleeding. The forcible removal from the delivery room was humiliating and was devastating. Rosalie's self-image as controlled vampire and as trustworthy family member shattered by the evidence that she was still predator and was still dangerous regardless of how many years she had practiced vegetarian lifestyle or how committed she was to protecting human life. Emmett's gentle handling of her during those moments was compassionate, but was also firm. His strength sufficient to restrain her and to remove her from the room before she could do damage that would destroy Bella and would destroy the baby and would destroy Rosalie's own soul through the knowledge that she had killed the woman she had been protecting and had killed the baby she wanted to raise. The waiting outside the delivery room while Edward worked frantically to save Bella and to deliver Renee was agony of different kind than physical thirst or physical need. Rosalie's terror that both mother and child would die, creating emotional pain that exceeded anything she had experienced since her own transformation when she had lost her humanity and had lost her future. The sounds from the room revealed chaos and revealed desperation. Edward's attempts to deliver the baby using his teeth because surgical instruments would contaminate with venom, mixing with Bella's weakening heartbeat, and with the baby's first cries that indicated successful delivery, but did not indicate whether Bella would survive long enough for transformation to take hold. Jacob's CPR kept Bella alive during the crucial moments when her heart was stopping and when Edward was injecting venom directly into her cardiac muscle. The werewolf's assistance representing alliance that transcended species hatred and that demonstrated his genuine love for Bella, whose survival mattered to him regardless of whether she became vampire or remained human or died before transformation could complete. The baby's emergence alive and apparently healthy brought relief that was immediately complicated by the question of whether Bella would survive transformation or whether the damage was too severe and whether death would claim her before venom could repair her broken body. Rosalie's request to hold the baby came from need that was primal and was undeniable. Her arms aching to hold the infant she had protected and had fought for during the weeks when everyone else had wanted abortion and had wanted to destroy the life that Rosalie had recognized as precious and as worthy of protection regardless of the cost or regardless of the danger. Renee was placed in her arms after being cleaned and after her airways were cleared. The weight of the baby and the warmth of her small body creating sensation that Rosalie had imagined for decades but had never experienced because vampire bodies did not create life and did not produce children who would need care and would need love. The baby was beautiful in ways that exceeded normal newborn appearance. Her features already defined and already showing the vampire heritage through her unusual perfection and through her strength that was evident in how she gripped Rosalie's finger and how she gazed at Rosalie's face with awareness that seemed too advanced for newborn who should not have had visual focus or cognitive recognition. Her bronze curls were Edward's contribution and her brown eyes were Bella's contribution. The combination creating appearance that was uniquely hers, while clearly reflecting both parents and clearly demonstrating her hybrid nature through features that were both vampire and human simultaneously. The love Rosalie felt for Renesmee was instantaneous and was absolute. The maternal bond forming in the moment when their eyes met, and when Renee May's small hand touched Rosalie's face in gesture that seemed deliberate and seemed purposeful despite her age being measured in minutes rather than in days or weeks. The fierce protectiveness and the overwhelming devotion that flooded through Rosalie as she held the baby represented fulfillment of needs she had carried since her transformation had stolen her ability to become mother through normal biological means. The vicarious motherhood better than no motherhood, and the chance to raise Renee May better than the eternal childlessness that had defined her existence for 70 years. Bella's transformation, progressing successfully in the next room, brought relief and brought guilt. Rosalie's happiness about Renee May's survival complicated by her shame about losing control during the delivery and by her recognition that she had nearly destroyed everything through moments of weakness that demonstrated her continued danger despite decades of practice and despite her commitment to vegetarian lifestyle. The 3 days of Bella's transformation passed with Rosalie caring for Renesmee constantly. The baby's rapid growth and her unusual abilities becoming apparent as she developed faster than human infant would develop, and as she demonstrated gifts that included thought projection through touch that allowed her to communicate despite being unable to speak. The joy of finally being mother, even if that motherhood was complicated and was vicarious, exceeded anything Rosalie had experienced during her vampire existence. The purpose and the meaning she found in caring for Renesmee, filling emptiness that had haunted her since 1933, when transformation had condemned her to immortal existence without the children she had wanted, and without the family life she had dreamed about during her human years. The weeks following Renemee's birth in September of 2006 transformed Rosalie's existence in ways that 7 decades of immortality had not achieved. The presence of baby who needed constant care and constant attention, providing purpose and providing structure that gave meaning to days that had previously felt empty, despite being filled with activities and with relationships that should have been sufficient, but had never been enough to heal the wound that childlessness had created. Rosalie became Renemee's primary caregiver, alongside Bella, whose newborn vampire control was surprisingly exceptional, and whose maternal instincts were strong enough to overcome the thirst and the distraction that typically characterized new vampires during their first months of immortal existence. The shared motherhood created bond between Rosalie and Bella that replaced their previous antagonism with partnership based on mutual devotion to Renesmee and mutual commitment to protecting her and raising her in ways that would honor both her vampire heritage and her human heritage. Bella's adjustment to vampire existence was remarkably smooth, given her newborn status, her shield ability manifesting immediately, and her control over her thirst exceeding what anyone had anticipated when they had worried that transformation would make her dangerous to humans and would make her require years of isolation before she could safely interact with her father or with other people from her human life. The exceptional control meant that Bella could participate fully in Renesmee's care from the beginning, rather than being separated from her daughter during crucial early weeks when bonding happened and when patterns were established that would shape their relationship across whatever years Renesmee's hybrid nature would allow before her growth stabilized and before she reached whatever maturity, point her unique biology determined, was optimal. Rosalie's expertise in baby care surprised everyone, including herself. Her knowledge of infant needs and infant development, apparently absorbed through decades of watching human mothers and through years of reading about pregnancy and childbirth, despite never expecting to have opportunity to apply that knowledge to actual child, who would depend on her competence and her devotion. She knew instinctively how to hold Renesmee and how to soothe her when she cried and how to anticipate her needs before Renesmee had to communicate them through the thought projection gift that allowed her to share images and emotions with anyone she touched. The natural maternal ability that transformation had prevented her from using with biological children found outlet in caring for Renesmee, whose rapid growth and whose unusual nature made her care more complex than normal infant care, but also made her more rewarding because her intelligence and her awareness developed so quickly that interaction became possible within days rather than within months. The wonder Rosalie felt at Renesmee's rapid growth was mixed with anxiety about how quickly childhood would pass and how soon Renesmee would reach maturity that would end the phase when she needed constant care and when she needed the protection and the guidance that allowed Rosalie to feel useful and to feel necessary. The hybrid nature created developmental timeline that exceeded human rates dramatically. Renesmee's physical growth and cognitive development progressing at pace that brought her from newborn to apparent toddler within weeks and from toddler to apparent preschooler within months. Each stage brought new abilities and new challenges, her vampire strength requiring Rosalie to teach her control and her human warmth, requiring protection from cold and from other environmental factors that full vampires did not need to consider. The heartbeat that Renesmee possessed was a source of constant fascination for Rosalie, who had not heard her own heartbeat or felt her own pulse since 1933, when transformation had stopped her heart and had made her body run on venom rather than on blood. The sound of Renesmee's heart beating and the warmth of her skin against Rosalie's cold marble flesh created sensory experiences that reminded Rosalie of her own humanity and that connected her to the mortal world in ways that purely vampire existence had not allowed. Holding Renesmee meant holding living, breathing, growing child rather than holding static, unchanging vampire whose body would remain frozen forever at whatever age transformation had captured them. The difference profound and meaningful in ways that made Rosalie grateful for the hybrid nature that she had initially feared might make Renesmee too strange or too different to love. Everything Rosalie had dreamed of about motherhood was realized through caring for Renesmee, despite the circumstances, being completely different from what she had imagined during her human life, when she had pictured herself as young mother with human baby and human husband in conventional family structure. The late night feedings and the diaper changes and the constant attention that infants required would have been exhausting for human mother, but were effortless for vampire whose body never tired and whose patience never wore thin through physical depletion. She sang to Renesmee in voice that had not been used for singing since her human life had ended. The lullabies her own mother had sung coming back to her across decades of not thinking about them and not remembering that they existed until motherhood made them relevant again and made them necessary for soothing baby to sleep. The protectiveness Rosalie felt toward Renesmee bordered on possessive and bordered on excessive. according to other family members who sometimes had to remind her that Renesmee was Bella's daughter primarily and was Rosalie's niece or ward, rather than being Rosalie's own child, despite how much care Rosalie provided and despite how deeply she loved the baby. The correction stung, but was accurate. Rosalie's recognition that she needed to respect Bella's primary claim on Renesmee, requiring her to step back sometimes when instinct made her want to intervene or want to take over when she believed she knew better, or when she believed her way was superior to whatever approach Bella was attempting. The shared custody arrangement that developed naturally allowed both women to mother Renesmee in complementary ways. Bella's biological connection and Bella's legal status as mother balanced by Rosalie's experience and Rosalie's availability when Bella needed help or needed partner in managing child, whose needs exceeded what single parent could provide. Edward's acceptance of Rosalie's role in Renesmee's life was grudging initially, but became genuine as he witnessed how much Rosalie loved his daughter and how committed she was to Renesmee's welfare and happiness. The previous conflicts about Bella's pregnancy were not forgotten, but were set aside in recognition that the outcome had been positive despite the danger and despite the trauma that birth had caused for everyone involved. Edward's ability to read Rosalie's thoughts meant that he knew her love for Renesmee was authentic and was selfless in ways that his love for Bella was selfless. The parental devotion creating common ground between two vampires who had been adversaries, but who could be allies when their shared goal was protecting and nurturing child, who meant everything to both of them. Jacob Black's imprinting on Renesmee moments after her birth created complication that Rosalie initially viewed as threat and initially viewed as violation. Her fury at the werewolf for forming supernatural bond with newborn baby, making her want to destroy him, despite understanding intellectually that imprinting was involuntary and was not predatory despite how it appeared to outsider who did not understand Quileute werewolf traditions. The explanation of imprinting's true nature gradually reduced her hostility as she learned that the bond would make Jacob devoted protector rather than making him inappropriate suitor. His role in Renesmee's life shifting to match whatever she needed at each developmental stage rather than being fixed as romantic interest that would be disturbing given the age difference and given the circumstances of the bond's formation. Understanding that imprint meant additional protection for Renesmee allowed Rosalie to value Jacob's presence despite her continued dislike of werewolves generally and her continued preference for keeping them away from her family and away from Renesmee specifically. The grudging alliance between Rosalie and Jacob developed through their shared commitment to Renesmee's safety and through their mutual recognition that cooperation served Renesmee better than conflict would serve her when she needed both vampire family and imprinted werewolf to provide the complete protection and the complete support system that her unique nature required. Jacob's patience with Rosalie's hostility and his refusal to respond to her provocations with equal hostility gradually earned her respect, if not her affection. His good nature and his genuine love for Renesmee, making him tolerable presence even when Rosalie would have preferred that Renesmee's life did not include werewolf complications. December of 2006 brought crisis that threatened everything Rosalie had found through mothering Renesmee. The Volturi's approach to investigate report of immortal child-creating existential threat that could result in Renesmee's execution and could result in the entire family's destruction if the vampire authorities decided that laws had been violated or that the hybrid's existence posed unacceptable risk to vampire secrecy. Irina Denali's misidentification of Renesmee as immortal child was understandable, given that hybrid children had never been documented in vampire history, and given that Renesmee's appearance suggested child of perhaps 3 or 4 years old based on her size, even though she was only months old chronologically, and was actually hybrid rather than transformed human child, whose creation was absolutely forbidden under vampire law. The terror Rosalie felt at learning about the Volturi's intention to come to Forks exceeded any fear she had experienced since her own assault and transformation. The possibility of losing Renesmee to execution or to confiscation, making her desperate and making her willing to fight to death to protect the child who had given her existence meaning and who had filled the emptiness that 7 decades of immortality had created. Her preparation for potential confrontation included training and included strategic planning with Jasper, who understood military tactics and who could provide guidance about how to position defenders and how to maximize their advantages against opponents who had superior numbers and who had superior gifts among their guard members. The gathering of witnesses from around the world throughout December represented Carlisle's diplomatic strategy for preventing violence through demonstrating that Renesmee was not immortal child and was not violation of vampire law. The assembled vampires from various covens providing testimony and providing physical presence that made Volturi think carefully about whether attacking would be worth the cost. When so many vampires were prepared to defend the Cullens and were prepared to challenge Volturi authority if that authority was being exercised unjustly. Rosalie's role in hosting the witnesses required her to tolerate massive vampire presence in her home and in her territory. The invasion of privacy and the constant awareness of potential threats making her hypervigilant and making her focus entirely on keeping Renesmee safe from visitors who might decide that hybrid child was curiosity worth studying or worth eliminating, regardless of whether Volturi authorized such action. Her testimony about Renesmee's nature and her testimony about Renesmee's growth rate would be crucial to convincing Volturi that the hybrid was fundamentally different from immortal children, whose mental development was frozen and whose behavior was consequently dangerous and was consequently prohibited under laws that existed to protect vampire civilization from exposure. The evidence of Renesmee's maturation and the evidence of her increasing control over her abilities demonstrated that she was developing normally despite accelerated timeline, and that she would reach stability point where growth would stop and where she would pose no more risk than adult vampire posed to secrecy and to order that Volturi existed to maintain. The confrontation on the 31st of December in 2006 brought together the largest gathering of vampires that had occurred in modern history. The snowy field north of Forks becoming stage for encounter that would determine Renesmee's fate and would determine whether Rosalie's brief experience of motherhood would be permanent or would be stolen from her through Volturi execution that would destroy the child and would destroy Rosalie's reason for continuing immortal existence that had already taken too much from her to endure losing more. Rosalie's position in the defensive formation placed her close to Renesmee, who stood with Bella and Edward at the front of the group. The proximity allowing Rosalie to intervene quickly if violence began, and if Renesmee needed immediate protection from attackers who might target her specifically as the supposed lawbreaker whose existence had triggered the confrontation. The willingness to die for Renesmee was absolute and was unquestioned. Rosalie's recognition that she would sacrifice herself without hesitation to protect her daughter, representing transformation in her character and transformation in her values, that decades of existence had not achieved, but that months of motherhood had created through the powerful bond between parent and child. The maternal love exceeded self-preservation instinct and exceeded rational calculation about whether individual life was worth trading for another individual life. The emotional certainty that Renesmee's survival mattered more than Rosalie's survival, creating courage and creating determination that made Rosalie a formidable defender, despite her lack of combat experience and despite her general preference for avoiding violence. Carlyle's diplomatic presentation to Aro and to the other Volturi leaders emphasized Renesmee's hybrid nature through careful explanation and through demonstration of her abilities that included her gift of sharing thoughts and memories through touch. The evidence convincing enough that even Caius, who wanted excuse for battle, had difficulty maintaining his position that the hybrid posed threat requiring elimination. Aro's fascination with Renesmee was genuine and was obvious through his extended examination of her complete mental history, accessed through his gift of reading every thought anyone had ever had simply by touching them. His conclusion that she was not immortal child and was not violation of law, removing the legal justification for attack, even if political motivations might have made attack desirable for other reasons. The execution of Irina Denali for false accusation happened swiftly and happened brutally, her destruction serving as reminder that Volturi justice was absolute and was final, regardless of whether accusations were made in good faith or were made maliciously. The casual nature of the killing shocked the assembled witnesses and reminded everyone that Volturi authority rested on violence and on willingness to destroy anyone who challenged their power or who inconvenienced them through mistakes that had political consequences. Rosalie felt no sympathy for Irina, whose report had threatened Renesmee and had created the crisis that could have resulted in her daughter's death. The lack of compassion revealing how thoroughly motherhood had changed Rosalie's priorities and had changed her perspective about what mattered and what deserved protection. Alice Cullen's timely return with Jasper and with Nahuel, the adult male hybrid from South America, provided final evidence that hybrid children matured normally and stabilized at adulthood rather than remaining dangerous children forever. The testimony from Nahuel about his century and a half of existence, demonstrating that hybrids pose no ongoing threat to vampire secrecy and pose no ongoing danger to vampire civilization. The evidence combined with Alice's vision, showing Aro the outcome of battle if he chose to fight, convinced the Volturi to retreat and to accept the Cullen's explanation that Renesmee was legal and was acceptable despite being unprecedented and despite being initially concerning to authorities who had never encountered hybrid and who had reasonable questions about whether such creature should be allowed to exist. The Volturi's departure brought relief that was overwhelming and was physical. Rosalie's tension releasing in rush of gratitude and joy that Renesmee had been spared and that their family had survived intact without losing members to battle that everyone had feared was inevitable. The witnesses dispersed gradually over the following days. They returned to their respective territories, marking end of crisis and marking beginning of new phase, where Renesmee could grow and could develop without immediate threat hanging over her existence. The normality that returned to household after weeks of preparation and weeks of stress felt precious and felt fragile. Everyone aware that they had been fortunate, and that different circumstances or different voluntary mood might have produced tragedy rather than producing peaceful resolution. Rosalie's continued role as Renesee's caregiver and protector settled into a sustainable pattern that would persist across the years as Renesee grew toward whatever maturity point her hybrid biology determined was appropriate. The watching her daughter develop and watching her learn and watching her become her own person provided satisfaction that exceeded anything Rosalie had experienced during 7 decades of immortal existence. The maternal bond creating purpose and creating joy that made eternity bearable and made vampire nature acceptable when it had previously felt like curse and like punishment. Bella's acceptance of Rosalie's deep involvement in Renesee's life evolved from initial territorial concern into genuine appreciation for the love and the care that Rosalie provided. The recognition that Renesee benefited from having 2 mothers and from having extended family who all adored her, making shared parenting seem like advantage rather than seeming like problem requiring resolution. Edward's complicated peace with Rosalie's permanent presence in their lives represented growth and represented acceptance that family structure was more complex than simple nuclear family, and that Renesee's well-being was enhanced by having multiple adults who loved her and who were committed to her happiness and her development. The past conflicts about Bella's pregnancy and about Bella's transformation were not erased, but were contextualized by the positive outcome and by the recognition that Renesee's existence justified the risks that had been taken and justified the trauma that everyone had endured to bring her safely into the world. The reflection on what she had gained through Renesee reminded Rosalie that immortal existence could include unexpected gifts and could include redemption for losses that seemed permanent and seemed irreparable when they first occurred. The motherhood she had achieved was different from the motherhood she had imagined during her human life, but was no less real and was no less meaningful. The love she felt for Renesee, as genuine and as powerful as biological maternal love would have been if transformation had not stolen her fertility and had not condemned her to childlessness that had defined her existence until September of 2006, when Impossible Baby had been born and had given Rosalie the daughter she had mourned for 70 years. So rest now, Twilight souls, with Rosalie's journey complete from golden cage to broken body to immortal existence. She never chose to the redemption she found through Impossible Baby, who gave her the motherhood that transformation had stolen and that 7 decades of grief had convinced her was lost forever. Her story carries the weight of beauty that attracted monsters, and of choice that was stolen, and of futures that were destroyed in single night of violence that changed everything and left nothing but immortal shell wrapped around human. Grief that could not heal and could not fade across the centuries that followed. The vanity that defined her was armor protecting wounded soul. The perfection she maintained was control when everything else had been taken from her without consent and without mercy. But even stolen futures can find unexpected purpose when impossible becomes possible, and when the baby no one believed could exist arrives and transforms bitterness into devotion, and transforms eternal grief into eternal love that makes immortality bearable and makes existence meaningful despite all the losses that can never be recovered or repaired. Sleep, knowing that even the deepest wounds can find unexpected healing, that motherhood takes forms beyond biology, that redemption arrives through paths we never anticipate when hope seems lost and future seems empty. Good night.